instruction. This one is about chess in schools for the blind.
Yeah, good afternoon once again. It's a completely different presentation. Actually, it's not a chess in schools program for blind. I happen to be informed that if it's chess in schools for a blind, it's mandatory only a blind person should come and present it by Ravindra. This particular program is a little bit the next stage of chess in schools. We have the chess in schools program, which is well organized for sighted. We have chess in schools program well organized by the International Braille Chess Association. All India Chess Federation for the Blind is also planning a chess in schools program for the blind, which is already started with around 34 schools in India. This program is basically a program where sighted people and blind people can learn chess in the same environment. And if there is an environment, this just gives the design and the interactions that they can have in such a environment where we are promoting learning rather than promoting game as such, game or like playing the tournaments. So this is more research infrastructure for schools, and it's also a model for the sighted schools to promote inclusion and especially help blind people coming into regular schools and participating. Yeah, and I'll just continue with the presentation. Thank you. So basically, like we want to focus chess in schools from a perspective of inclusion and continuous availability of instruction. The inclusion is like pretty much achieved in chess, because chess is the only game where the rules are not modified for including any disabled people. That includes blind as well. The rules are not modified for them. Maybe the chessboard is modified. That's the part of how they are differently enabled, but the rules are not modified. But the second part is what is intriguing. The continuous availability of chess instruction is currently not there. Even the talk, when we start to relate few things that are not there, they lose hindsight of what's happening and they're completely lost after that. And chess is a game, it's very similar. You need to continuously learn the game and continuously evolve with the game. And as I said in the last presentation, chess to us is like a mirror. If we see it right, we see ourselves. And if you don't see it right, you just see the material as a glass or something. So this particular program is targeted in terms of how to build that particular continuous availability of instruction. The way we have coined it is a purity framework. It's promoting the understanding and the rationale for inclusive thoughts in youth. And that's why it's in a sighted school, what we wanted to promote. And this framework that we are called as purity. And the whole idea is to introduce chess, the common sessions, like 2 hours in a month's time, so that it doesn't eat much time of the sighted schools, and it does not take enough resources from the blind schools. Originally, this design was done in India because blind schools don't have funds and they cannot travel much. So 2 hours would be a sighted school can fund for that particular 2 hours for children to come down to the regular schools. And 12 months makes it like an attractive marketing for like 24 hours in a year, which is just a day's effort for blind people coming into our regular schools. And many schools said, yes, we will support this particular program. And I'm just presenting you the design in terms of what we did in the particular program, how we designed the program so that like it is effective and it answers the preliminary questions that are generally asked by different schools. So basically it's just a 24-hour program, but the idea is to study the continuous availability of instruction. We also have a novel classroom design for it, where the sessions are more activity-based. It's learning by discussion and learning by doing. And there's a lot of planning that happens proactively. We have a structured syllabus, which is like aligned in such a way that the blind people and the sighted people can understand the same position with their methods of understanding. So that motivation I will just present it. And we have an instructional methodology which is intuitive, non-trivial, and quite objective. And there is also an evaluation methodology along with it. So the striking observation that I made in 2002 while teaching a blind student was we see chessboard, we see the chess pieces, and then we see the pieces going to different squares. So our thought processes as sighted goes from pieces to squares, whereas when the blind person was playing, they touched a bishop, but still they wanted to touch the square to understand which bishop that they have touched. And they were working more to localize the piece in a square and then thinking the move that they wanted to play. Ideally, their thought process goes from squares to pieces, which is two complementary methods and two opposing methods. And we just wanted to evolve a framework integrating two opposing ideas. If we have an environment which will enable sighted players to synthesize certain position from the current position and enable blind players to understand the current position, if they take the same time, then they can actually start to learn with each other. So this is the observation that I made in 2002. And since then, I've been working to see how this can be a system that can be taken into operational, and purity is a strategy in which it can be deployed. And yeah, basically we wanted to ask the question, if the methodology is different, it should be possible to have chess instructions aligned in such a fashion that it is not different from how blind people are actually learning. So the blind people includes both visually impaired as well as completely blind, as well as low vision, where they still have to do the extra hovering to understand what they are looking into. So extending this to a system, we just thought whether it is possible to have the chess instructions in such a way that they can experience different things that they want to experience, which means it becomes a multiple audience problem where there is a sighted audience who wants to think the next move by the curse of having to make a move, and the blind audience who want to understand the current position. It clearly identifies two different baselines, and if we can match these two, that's what this study is all about. Once this is possible, the next stage is to have a strategy in place to synergistically progress their learning, and we can very well tune the sighted chess and the blind chess independently so that their methods are honed, and when they interact, the interaction is synergistic. So I just wanted to explain the concept. Basically, we look into the C7 square, which is the green square. Assuming you see different pieces and pieces going to that square, the arrows indicate the thought processes that can generate to attack different pieces. But when you directly touch the C7 squares, that's the point where when the rook goes to the C7 squares, the whole position collapses. And basically, that's the thought from the squares to pieces. Basically, when you touch the C7 squares, the same position I've given to many blind people to solve, and the people who have touched the C7 square, they've always solved the position. But the sighted people, this was game played by an international master and my former student. He missed the winning combination on board, being a very, very strong grandmaster today. but still it is possible. Even having seen the combination, the method is different between the two people. So I didn't stop with just the method. I just started to understand what it is, what it means, chessboard for the differently impaired people, what are the squares, how they perceive the squares, how they perceive the pieces, pawns, the king, the piece coordination, the relative squares that they can touch, and the color imbalance, what they can perceive. This is basically the template that shows the difference between how sighted use the information and the blind people use the information. And purity, coming back, we wanted to embrace the RNIB thought. It's the opportunity to be equal and the right to be different is what this design basically, it's the policy for the design. And basically, this presentation will talk about the design thinking process that we went through to get a desired process for inspiring the inclusion for youth in the sighted schools, because there has been like a little bit of negligence in terms of not understanding what blind people expect. And every time in chess tournaments when we see blind people, it's easy for them to interface, but not everybody interfaces with them. So there's something that we wanted to promote in terms of understanding the inclusion. And then we wanted to nurture that small inspiration that we derive out of working with blind people, and want to like take a learning research approach to understand how the system evolves. And Purity constantly focuses to evaluate other chess programs as well, so that it's important to establish interoperability with other chess programs and the blind chess programs, so that it is a framework which basically interface two different programs and two different people. So the process as such, what we identified through different focus group meetings was to inspire the inclusion, and we wanted to nurture that inspiration, and we want to synergize each and every thought process that children nurture when they work with the blind people. And finally, we wanted them to experience a synergy between sighted and blind, so that their progress is continuous and that is constantly tracked with the progress that they are making with chess as well. So we drafted a design goal in terms of initially how these processes should be identified at the acquisition stage, which is like when they are very first introduced to chess during their first contact classes, and they're doing the problem solving exercise and all those things. And slightly when they are become specialist, when they are starting to master certain openings and want to pursue some serious level of chess training. So what are all the specialization needs? And integration needs is like how they motivate once they are an expert in certain field. Expert not being like a expertise comes after 10 years, but once they are confident in terms of their individual styles, how do they contribute? Unless they believe in contributing, this framework will collapse in its own weight. So this is what we were trying to achieve. And as an exit maturity, we wanted to discover the learning events that are happening, and we wanted to document each and every interactions, and we want to rationalize the learning efforts and evolve instructional design so that it can be templates shared with schools that can directly promote these activities, so that you don't no longer need a program that's separate for like sighted and blind, because like most of the schools in India after 8th grade, the blind people join the regular schools. So if you're going to have a program over there, so these instructional designs will be useful for little higher education